Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of the new Minneapolis-St. Paul Impact Hub podcast. We're going to call this podcast humanship. And the whole idea with it is really it's to be goofy, and it's to kind of fly by the seat of our pants. So I've not thought a whole ton about what's going to happen here. We're just going to let it unfold, and it's going to be what it is. But the whole idea with it is to talk about what it's like to be human in spaces that often aren't human, and talking about that kind of in the context of entrepreneurship and business, but there's a lot of room for expansion to see where this ship goes. So today is the first episode, and we're going to start things off with a conversation. I'm going to probably do another episode down the road a little bit, giving you a more concise, potted explanation of what this whole podcast is going to be, but we'll see when that happens. It'll happen when it happens. But today we're talking with TJ McMullen, and TJ is a longtime member of Impact Hub. And I've known TJ for, I guess, a while, and TJ is just a compassionate, awesome human being who's down to earth and loves listening, loves talking about his work, loves story, and is just really good at being a human with other humans, which is something we often overlook. And so thinking about who to talk to for this first episode, TJ was one of the first people that came to mind. So, TJ, welcome.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny, how this whole came up. It was a conversation that, you and I were just kind of sitting there talking like we do, talking about I don't even remember exactly what we were talking about. And
Human things.
Right. And that's kind of where the conversations always go, right? Where when you can slow down enough and just share. What is it? And you made reference yesterday at the town hall meeting that I believe it was at the town hall meeting, or maybe it was at the 1 Million Cups, where you just said there's more than just the work.
Yeah, it's
what's behind it. Let's peel it back. That's kind of what you kind of part of the vision of what this is all about. Where it's like,
right.
Let's slow down. Let's talk about what the human piece of this, all this work, right? And I think that, our conversations go there often. Appreciate it.
I find those to be so valuable. I mean, I come to the Impact Hub a lot of days, and I actually come not expecting to get a lot of work done, which right. I probably maybe shouldn't broadcast that out there, but that's just for me. And because it's this whole, I shouldn't say that though. I mean, it's this whole other form of productivity where I come here, and so much of my time here is spent in conversation with people, and it's still very productive, but it's really changed my mindset of what productive is. And there's this really big piece, this important piece of human connection that I'm starting to see is profoundly productive, but we don't, talk about that as being productive a lot of times.
How do you bridge that gap between the traditional productive, like check the box off, kind of stuff where it's like, I got to get my stuff done, my work done, and productive in a sense that, I had 3 conversations today that were maybe good, maybe not, whatever, but it triggered something deeper that it was like, those are delicious. Yeah. That's a different productivity. I mean, and what is that?
Yeah. That it is a very different productivity, and it feels life-giving. It's a life-giving productivity. Not to say that other productivity types aren't, but there is a sense of, like, when I walk away from here, I feel like I've been seen, and I've seen other people, and I mean that in like a really deep sense. Right. It's like I think what happens here a lot is that to me, but also to a lot of people, is that we come in here and we see people for what they're doing and the work that they're doing, but it's more than that. Like, we see people as people, and It's like people are interested in getting to know others for who they are, not just for the work that they're doing
and what they're doing. I mean, it's like what is okay. I just had a conversation with a lady, and she's starting this little business about these temporary homes or these permanent homes that are smaller and all these kind of things. And it's like, what got you to get to that point where you're doing that? It's like, when you tell your stories, what is it that gets that person to that point of, ooh, I want to start telling stories. I want to share that piece. And you said that well, where it's like, when I come to the hub, there's so much of that. It's like there's all these people that you have these conversations with, and everybody has their unique talents and their things that they're working on. And it's like, what makes them want to do what they do? What is it in their life? What is it in their story? Those are nice. Yeah. And they happen a lot here at the hub. I mean, that's like, it's like there's so many conversations, and it's like this little community within the community of all these people trying to do better. And it's like trying to make a social impact. Yeah,
and it does happen a lot. And that's actually one reason I wanted to bring you on for the first episode, is like, you're really good about that. I feel like talking to you, there's what you do, but there's also like, your life. And it seems to me, talking, I'm sure it's always different on the inside, right? But like, there's this integration that you have that's really unique. And the approach that you bring to your work is also the approach that you bring to your life and to interactions. Is that something that resonates with you? How do you see that play out in your world?
How do I see what play out? I mean, that approach, or that, I don't.
Does it feel integrated to you?
I don't know if I don't separate it. I don't know how to separate it. I don't know how to I feel like I just kind of do what I do personally. I mean, obviously, it's like, for when I first started coming to the hub, I liked the social impact piece. But I was, before and working with Clip Different, it's fed this piece within me that I didn't know was so strong. But it kind of started when I came to the hub way back when. And I like the social impact piece. I like the idea of what I do in my work is there's more to it than just collecting a paycheck. And obviously, money's important, things are important, all that stuff.
Right.
It serves a purpose, but I like the bigger picture and not knowing exactly how to put my finger on it, kind of stuff always. But I know, like with Clip Different, that's fed something within me that I knew it was always there, but I didn't have an outlet to let that kind of flourish.
So what does that outlet look like, and how does it enable you to flourish? How does it enable you to be you?
How does that allow me to be me? A lot of our fingernail clippers, they serve people that for whatever reason have a challenge cutting their nails.
I suppose I should just give I'll give a brief synopsis of what Clip Different is, kind of in the notes, but
okay.
So you make automated fingernail clippers.
Yep, automatic fingernail clippers, and they work well for everybody. Myself included. They work, I don't like fingernails all over my house. And so I like it with my kids and because it's an easy way to contain. The devices work extremely well if, for whatever reason, holding a fingernail clipper is a challenge. It can be a challenge, whether it's from somebody who's born with, one arm, limb different, had an accident, lost an arm, whatever it is, arthritis, MS, Parkinson's, whatever the reason is, whether it's by nature or by the environment or whatever it is, somebody has a hard time holding a fingernail clipper and cutting their nails. Growing up in a house where my mom was in a wheelchair, that I didn't know any different. Also, at the same time, I knew that there was a difference. I knew, like, walking in the room, I notice when there's a lip in the doorway, because I know, even, I mean, my mom's passed, and it's, you know, been a long time, but I still recognize little things, right? And it's, you know, I just recognize those kind of things, and it's, this is given like an avenue for where I can see people that appreciate the independence, or appreciate, you know, something like a device, what this device offers, that little piece of independence in a way that most people, myself included for a long time, just kind of glossed over. It's like, how do you cut your nails? Well, you don't ask that question unless you have a challenge or somebody you love has a challenge.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things like that we don't normally think about.
Right.
But are actually really important to other people, you know. I'll just get this just a little closer. But so yeah, can you keep going on the train of how that, like, doing that work and then bringing that, you know, larger philosophy into the rest of your life, how that allows you to be you?
Say that again.
So the work that you're doing, how do you feel like you get to be you in doing that work? How does it allow you to be you?
There's a lot of energy behind what I do, and what that is I'm helping. I'm helping people, and I get to help people, and not knowing necessarily that that was a part of what I wanted to do, or, I mean, I always knew, right? I mean, it's like, I've always had a soft heart, but not knowing how to do that and make a career out of it, or make a business out of it, or make a, you know, before I was working with Clip Different, I always say I'm a connector. So I used technology, web-based stuff, and connected my clients better with their clients. Well, a lot of it was just kind of like work. But what got me into that business was I would go into little shops, because I like to explore, and I'd find little niches and, like, be like, you know, like a cool little coffee shop or a neat little bakery that makes something very well, or whatever it was. And it's like, you got to let people know about this coolness. I mean, what you know, like a little old trinket shop or whatever it might have been. And so I figured out, like, using technology, how to put people on the map, so to speak, before, like, local SEO and maps and all that kind of stuff. It's like, how do you let the internet know about your goodness, or your little cool slice of the pie?
So it's really highlighting the story piece.
Right.
I mean, when I talk to you, it's very evident that you put a lot of emphasis on story, you know, whether you know it or not, but, like,
I don't know it.
Well, even in talking about your work, you know, it's always like, yeah, I met this guy the other day, and he was telling me the story about, you know, how he, you know, lost the limb, and
right.
And you know, I brought out the Clip Different fingernail clipper, and, like, it was able to have this exchange with him, and it's, like, so much about that interpersonal connection for you, and it's like, that's cool for me, like, that's inspiring for me to hear.
Right. And it's one part, you know, an important piece of this, and maybe about me, it's like, it's not about me. I don't want it about me. I don't like talking about me. I'm boring. The stories that this device helps, the people that this product helps, that is exciting. That's fun. That's the gentleman that you're talking about. You know, he raced mountain bikes. He plays basketball. He does all these kind of things. He just happened to be born with one arm, right? And he actually happens to also design and help Nike design their adaptive gear for people. And when he learned about this product, he just happened to be in the booth next to us at this event, and he's like, you don't understand. My mom cut my nails until I was in college, and I felt the depth of what he was saying. And that is a cool story. Like, ooh, this device kind of helped him. ever so slightly, and there's a lot of little stories like that. So it's less about, has nothing to do with me. I just happen to be in that moment, or I might be able to share that with them and feel that energy. Where it's like, and that's a lot of it, like conversations. It's, and I appreciate that so much about you, Nick, where it's like you capture stories, you get into that meatiness, that of why somebody does something, or what is the story behind this person or that person, and you're able to pull that out and pull that and shine a light on that uniqueness, and it's like I'm kind of fumbling with the words and everything.
No,
but it's
that's like, that's so true. Where for you, where do you fit into it, right? Like if it's not about you, what's your role in it? In the work broadly. I
can feel the energy. I see. I can see the stories. Like a lot of my work, I connect with the customers. If they've got a problem, they reach out to me, and so I sit with a lot of the people, or I talk with a lot of the people, and I answer a lot of the calls, and I walk people through if they have a hard time or whatever it might be, and even to find out if the product is right for them. So I have a lot of interaction with the customers, which I appreciate, and so I can feel enough of what they're saying to say, oh, yes or no, or to feel what's going on.
Yeah. This is something I've been thinking about with my own work, is that it's hard for me to I've been trying to think about my work as creating space for people to, basically explore their own story and on a deeper level then to trust themselves, and it's like we don't really as a society give each other space to do that, to explore our story and to wonder and to be asked questions and kind of lay the playing field open. And I've noticed in myself is that, like, and I'm maybe this isn't true for you, but I'm just making this reflection on myself, is that in saying that, I like kind of come to this place where I actually like slip into some level of self-abasement, like I've nothing to do with this. This is like, I basically don't have a role in this, like I'm not important in this at all. But I was talking with, a shout out to my good friend Zach, who's like, well, maybe you need to think of it more as holding space, because it's, instead of like just creating the space, it's like I create the space and then hold it. So I still have this role to play.
Expand on that. What do you mean, like hold that space? Because I think there's something good with that.
I think
it's like expand on like.
Yeah, and I'm still discovering it for myself too. But like in creating the space, it's sort of like my only role is to like just kind of set it on the table, set the conversation on the table, and then I step back and it's like I'm gone from it. But actually that space needs to be held and nurtured and cultivated, right? Like in a conversation or in a relationship, if I just like set it there and then step back and I'm not doing any work to help that person cultivate something within themselves, or like create an atmosphere that's comfortable and trusting, then I'm not doing any work at all. But like that work of holding that space and like creating that trust, I don't know if that makes sense, but so in some sense it's like this clarification for me of the role that I'm playing, and like I actually have a really vital role in the development of this story. I don't know if that...
And is that within like maybe it's even like using this podcast as an example. It's like holding this space. This is important. Not knowing exactly where it's going to go, but there's a lot of opportunity, right? There's a lot of opportunity to share and put a platform in place with people that do have exciting stories, that are doing exciting work, and you're making this kind of available to.
Right. Yeah, it's making it available, really.
Put in a little bit of a spotlight to say, hey, let's have this conversation and explore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's an honesty piece to it, and if we even want to use the word vulnerability, and I think if it has to start somewhere, and in so many of our conversations, particularly when it comes to business development and entrepreneurship, we're very, there's such a veil of professionalism. You can't not be professional. And I'm kind of I've bought into that for a long time, and now I'm kind of well, why? I just want to be me. I just want to be honest,
right.
And talk about, be real with people. And so if I can do that for myself and say hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm confused about this, or, I'm terrible at this, I'm trying to get better, whatever it is, then that, I think, opens the door for, other people to then be honest. And there's so much value in honesty, especially when we're talking about, as a freelance person, it's if there's not room to be honest, then I pent it all up inside of myself, and I start thinking, oh, nobody else is feeling this way. Oh, where's the next paycheck gonna come from? And I'm not as good at this as all these people, and so I can't call myself a videographer, because look at all those people who are really good at it. And so then I just keep all that stuff inside, and I think we all do that a lot of times.
Right.
We play this self-comparison game to other people, and I'm not that because they're really good at that. Well, no, you are that. And just be it, and be honest about how it is.
Being in the space of what is, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously the comparison thing, and judging also. It's ooh, look at that video. Just using this example, look at that video person, maybe they did this and that, but acknowledging, ooh, I'm judging. What is that all about? Why am I, what is it within me that I'm trying to minimize someone else's skill set or raise up? It's ooh, they're superior. Oh, what's going on there? What's, what is, I don't know exactly
how do you get out of that?
How do I get out of what?
That game of self-comparison. How do you accept what is?
Practice.
Yeah.
I think there's not kidding myself that it doesn't go on. It does. I judge. I'm an asshole sometimes, and but I know that's not also where the place that I'm gonna be. It doesn't feel good. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be in that space. I know it's isolating, and it shrinks me down, and it shrinks my mindset and my world, and that's not a place of where I want to be. It's not where I want to go, right? And so it's not pretending that it's not there. It's acknowledging, oh yeah, I have these tendencies. I can have these tendencies, and I can still acknowledge that there's an elephant in the room and minimize that stuff. And it's you don't serve me, you gotta be in your place type of thing, and not, I don't know, it's I don't know if that makes any sense. But that's but it's also inferior but feeling inferior, and then it's not measuring up, like you said, and it's that frees me into doing so much stuff also. So it's the spectrum. It's how do you live with that? Yeah. And it's for me, it hasn't worked when I've tried to minimize it and trying to pretend it's not there. It's ooh, no, it's there, but it doesn't work well. So it's how can I see the goodness, or how can I get past it, or how can I how would you answer that? Same kind of thing where it's
I love that way of putting it, because it is there. And I feel we a lot of times play this game where, right, and especially, I mean, I'll speak to the self-comparison stuff because I do that a lot. I'm getting better about doing it less and less, and I think a lot of us do it, but of, comparing ourselves to other people. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. A lot of times, like, I'm comparing my worst self to somebody's best self, right? Because they're putting out their best work, and so I'm looking at that, and then I'm comparing my worst work to that. And so then I get in this mode of, God, I'm terrible at this. And then I feel guilty about feeling that. Like, no, you shouldn't feel that. Like, don't feel that. And then I'm trying to, like, push that away. And so I'm, like, trying to pretend, like you said, that it's not there. And then it's like this whole spiral where all these different emotions and, like, thoughts, are, like, coalescing together. And it's just this whirlwind of, like, confusion. It's just gross.
Right.
And so there is something about accepting it, right? Like that, those sentiments of comparing myself to other people, they're there. And what if I'm not going to get rid of them? But what if my task is to learn to accept them and to love them even?
Right.
And, like, channel that energy into something that's constructive. And easier said than done, right? But
right. I have my uncle. He has a saying where he says, "We're not trying to win a beauty contest." And I think of, like, the perfectionism that we talked about the other day, where it was like that can, because I'm a kind of a perfectionist. Like, even it's deep ingrained. Like these nail clippers. I mean, it took 35 years to develop these because they have to be perfect, and I get that. But I also know, personally, I can take it to my level. It's like if I wait for perfection, I can have a super high standard, which I do, in all areas. I'm my worst critic to myself, and it's like that's a tough place for me to be. And it's like I go there, and I can beat myself up and all this kind of stuff, and that's not cool. But I also know I'm not trying to win a beauty contest. The person that I'm comparing myself to, I'm, like you said, I'm comparing my insides to somebody else's outside, or the work that they're putting out versus the work that I'm not doing yet, because it's not measuring up. But the difference is they put the work, I mean, they printed something, or they made a product, or they did something, right? I mean, and I think that's the important thing that I have to remember, that I think you kind of touched on. It's like, it doesn't have to be, it can have a high standard, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Or it's like, it's important to keep moving forward. It's important to keep putting work out. It's important to keep going and putting products in the market, or printing, or writing, or whatever your art is, right? It's important to keep doing it, even if it's not, quote unquote perfect.
Yeah.
It's important to keep putting it out there, because I think there's a lot of lesson in the messiness of that whole process. The messiness of, like, ooh, I put out 5 blog posts, and now I know how to, see the structure of something, or I've shot 6 videos, and now I know more now than I did before, and ooh, look at that early work, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But there's something cool with that, right?
And I love this as a metaphor for just living life in general.
Right.
Like, yeah, there's a story my dad was telling me a couple of weeks ago about an art professor who had 2 classes, and he decided to try an experiment. And he told the first class that they were going to be judged based on the quality of their work. And he told the second class that they were going to be graded based on the quantity of their work.
Say that again.
So the first class he was gonna grade based on the quality of their work.
Right.
And the second class he was gonna grade based on the quantity of their work. And so the first class sat down and focus grouped it and brainstormed and drafted ideas and researched and figured out what was going to be the best thing, the best quality we can create. And the second class just started making crap.
Right.
Like they did, like it didn't matter what they made because they just started making it. And by the end of the class, it was evident that the second class was creating and innovating in a far more fluid, creative way than the first class was, because they were learning through experience and they were just trying stuff. And that experiential learning piece is, I think, both are needed, but right, like in some senses, that experiential learning is way more valuable than just the head learning, the ideas learning, because you're living it, you're trying it, you're feeling it, like it's not just this idea that lives up in the head, but it's like this, you're feeling it with your whole body, you're experiencing it. And I just love that. That's really true in developing a business idea and entrepreneurship stuff, but it's just true in life to try things.
How do you practice that in your life, do you think? How do you practice that with your storytelling, with your videos and things like that?
Yeah.
Because your work is amazing, right? I mean, you go,
thank you.
Your sites, your stories, you can feel the energy behind it. You can feel the people. You can feel the stories. And so you do that extremely well.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's like, how do you...
That's a good
question.
question.
How do you balance that? How do you balance that, right? I mean, like the... Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something I want to think more about too. But the first thing that comes to mind, this is something I've been learning a lot lately. It's like all these new layers of listening. And this goes to the...
What? I'm just kidding.
What?
Bad joke.
Nice, perfect. That was
humor.
That was spot on. Yeah, we're gonna encourage weird voices on this podcast more too. So I got to practice that. But all these like new layers of listening, where for a lot of my life, I've always valued listening, but it's listening. There's like one mode of listening where it's like I'm here and you're there, and you are like speaking at me. Words are coming at me, and I'm filtering it through me. But then there's like this other type of listening where, in a sense, it's like I become you. And as you're speaking, it's like the words are coming out of my mouth. If that's kind of weird, but this like really putting myself in your shoes. And I don't think we can ever fully do that. Like we all bring our own experience and our own lenses to things. But I think the act of trying to do that is really valuable. And that's something that I've really learned through experience. And I try to put myself in these situations where like, I don't know what's going to happen. And like, look at this, look at a situation as an opportunity for me to like kind of step out of Nick's skin for a minute.
Right.
And like not have control in the situation and kind of go where the wind takes me, go where the story takes me. And I think that's this other thing that I was talking about yesterday with this podcast, is that I think a lot of like so much pain that we inflict on ourselves is unnecessary pain. And it comes from this idea maybe that like we have a script,
right?
And it's like a story. And I'm off script right now. I got to get back to it. I'm not doing my script. When no, we don't have a script. Like we're just, the story is unfolding as we're living, as it's happening.
Yeah.
And we always are where we are right now. And that's,
you can have stories, you can have goals, you can have
right. It's not exclusive
and all that
to
kind of stuff. It's like you still need to take actions. You still need to do things every single day. And you still need to be moving along that path. But it's like the story. Drop the story.
Yeah.
The story we tell ourselves. The script. The blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's
I keep coming back to this idea of maybe there's not so much somebody to become as there is a becoming of somebody, and that's kind of rocked my world lately. This idea that our self is out there somewhere and we got to go find it. And I'm navigating through life, and I found it. I found who I am, and then something happens, and
that wasn't me.
That wasn't me. Yeah. Shoot, I got to go over here and find it now. When it's like, no, you are you, and it's sort of this cliche statement, but it's got a lot of depth to it.
Two quick questions on that.
Yeah.
Just, going down that path, what got you to that point where you started exploring that stuff, right? Because that's not always something we just grow up to, hey, I want to grow up to be a deep individual or anything along those lines. But then also, how has the hub helped you get to that point? Because you've been here a while. You've done a lot of things here.
And actually, this is a perfect segue because I wanted to ask you about this too. And maybe that's kind of a good note to taper off on.
What's that?
Just about being at the hub.
Right.
You know. But yeah, was there more to your question or otherwise?
Well, just okay. So I
think I got what you're saying, but just wanted to make sure there wasn't more I'm missing.
No, I'm just curious. So what got you into that?
Yeah.
That mindset, and then how did the hub help, and how is the hub help?
Yeah.
That kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think it's. I mean, in one sense, it's always been ingrained in me. I'm just interested in story, and I don't quite know where that comes from.
Right.
Yeah, and I like to think this is like the optimistic, maybe ridiculous side of me, but I like to think that we're all interested in story. You know, it's just like a fundamental human thing. Why do people go to the movies? You know, why do people listen to music? Why do people, less and less people read books? But you know, why? Yeah, all these things. Everything is a story. Everything. It's like one of my new favorite things to do is to go on walks down the alleyway, especially at midnight. I haven't died yet, so but nobody take this advice and then say it was from me.
And being able
this
to
is not advice.
I think even in a dark alley or an alley at midnight is being able to pause in that moment and just sort of say, okay, what's going on?
Yes, and there's so many stories, right? You walk down, it's like this whole other world that you don't normally see. Who goes through the alleyways? We don't do that very often.
Nick does.
Nick does, yeah. So be careful if you do. But you see how people arrange their backyards, and you see what they're throwing out, and you see all these little details that you don't see from the front of the house, and it's quiet and it's a little bit isolated, and there's basically no traffic, and that. All those stories are there, and the stories. Everything is a story, and just looking at it that way kind of opens the door to this much broader story that all these micro stories are a part of, and that the way that I'm living is a part of the ecosystem around me. Yeah, and I think. Go ahead.
No, I was thinking of a similar type of story where I take I have my kids, and at their birthdays we've had cousins come over and things like that, and a lot of times we do nature walks, and so we'll go, wherever we can find something, right? And it's and the ages have always ranged from young to older and all that kind of stuff, and it's on these nature walks I always like to stop at some point, whether we're on a river or in the middle of the woods or something, and just say, okay, what does everybody see? Stop for a second. What does everybody see? Oh, I see a tree. I see this. I see a mountain. Oh, okay, let's look closer. Okay, look down by your shoe. What do you see? Oh, I see a rock, whatever. Okay, now draw a little teeny inch square. In that little square, what do you see? Oh, look even closer. And then there's little something little growing out of nothing, right? And it's just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's
one visualizing this as you're speaking.
And I have a niece, and she's like, I didn't know there was so much stuff there. And it's amazing. Walking down the street, and it's
wow, I love that.
Right? And what was it? Open Streets. And the booth, when we were doing Open Streets last year, and it was raining and all that kind of stuff, and the booth next to us, they have environmental gardens or something along those, and then the lady was talking about, she's like, do you know how much stuff you could eat that's all around you right now? And I'm like, tell me about it, because I totally love that stuff, right? I like to go in the woods and pick things off and just start eating them and things like that. And
Nice.
So she's like, okay, look around, see that over there, you can eat it and whatever. And she's like, even look down, look in the little crack here. She's like, this is a little succulent, and you can eat this. And it's like, what?
Right on the sidewalk.
Right. So, I don't know.
All those little things, yeah.
Yeah.
Finding life in the details.
Right. And I was thinking about that when you were talking about walking down the alley and looking and just kind of seeing, oh, there's so much story here. There's so much life in the stories, and I think I always take that back to, Clip Different. It's oh, there's so much. There's so much there. There's so much opportunity. There's so many stories. There's so much to be shared.
Yeah.
And it's
Right. And I feel like, yeah, kind of on a closing note, and I want to end on you talking about this, but Impact Hub you asked about, and that is right. I think of I really think of this place as it's like a second family for me.
It is,
and that's awesome that you can say that too, because of that fact. I think that there is this attunement to story, and people walk in here, I think, pretty attuned to their own story. We all have work in being more attuned to our story, but they're also genuinely interested and attuned to other people's story, and then the story of how those come together, and like this place is really a nexus, I feel like,
right,
where all these different stories intersect and create this like kind of firework story.
I think an important piece with the hub, in just my experience in it, like, I'm an introvert. I left my own devices. I can just work at my house and stay in my story and stay in the story of my life and all this kind of stuff. It was important for me in my experience with the hub that I came here, okay, here's something that's going on that's bigger than myself. Here's a bunch of people that have this entrepreneurial spirit, want to do good in this, in society, all that kind of stuff, and I get that. But still, I came here for quite a while and still just isolated and just sat at my little spot and drank my coffee and didn't really talk to anybody. But Terry here, one day she was like watering the plants. We just started having a conversation, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" All this kind of, what I think is important here at the hub is the community and the people welcoming, and people have the hand out to welcome new people in. That's what happened with me. Otherwise, I can go and co-work everywhere and all this kind of stuff, and it's like I've tried that, right? But a difference for the hub for me is more, like you said, it's a family, it's a community. It's like when I was ready, there was people here welcoming and kind and non-threatening and making space available to have these conversations and have curiosity about other people. And it's not just about me and my business and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh no, what are you doing? What kind of stuff? And everybody that I've had interaction with here, it's all been like that. It's like, ooh, and it's not always right away. It's sometimes after a few times of seeing somebody at the hub, or it's having an interaction, or seeing them at an event, or whatever it might be. But sooner or later, it's like, ooh, I've seen you a few times. What? Tell me more, and all that kind of stuff. And people were like that with me, and that helped a lot, because that's not my nature generally. And it's like I can just put my head down and I got to pay my bills or whatever it might be, and it's being a part of something bigger is it separates. It's a different experience.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the people here, being so welcoming. And and I think that's an important part.
Yeah. It's changed my life. Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Thanks for coming on. This is I feel like this is good energy. Yeah. Thank you for bringing your energy to this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Excited to see where this goes.
Into the hub. So
yeah. Well, cool. I want to give a shout out to our producer Cornelius. We'll talk more about Cornelius in the coming episodes, but a lot of this started with conversations with Cornelius, who is the goofiest person anybody will ever meet. So on that note, we're gonna end things here. Thanks, TJ.
Thank you, Nick.
And we're gonna see where this develops. I think there's a lot of room for expansion. Next episode might be completely different. I don't even know.
Probably will be different.
Probably will be different, which is good. We're going to celebrate difference. Yeah.
Different is good.
Yep. But this was a great first one. So
high five.
High five. Actually.
Right.
Nice. right, we'll see you next time.
Cool.